All right, thank you. I'll take a motion to come out of recess.
Motion to come out of recess.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Back in recess. Thank you everyone for your patience. We were beginning to introduce our development of a junior councilman person program, which is the first for Verona Borough, but we're very excited to have some interest from Verona. Nancy, did you want to add any more background on that topic?
Not too much. I think that during the break you were talking to them. It's new for us. We are coming up with the process of what to do. So we're as much in the learning curve about that as you might be. But welcome. And there's also another person who may have not known that we were having the meeting tonight because we changed the schedule. So I will endeavor to make sure that everybody knows when the meetings are, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you for being the liaison with the new program and for everyone's patience with our process. I did mention to John and his mom, Danielle, that we would like to have John kind of look over the priorities and committees that we went over tonight and sort of think of things that he would be interested in working on. And feel free to pass on that information, Nancy, to Allie as well.
Yes.
All right. There are no other comments on that. I'm going to actually skip to item 7G. Bear with me. Update on signage for alleys. Tom, would you like to share any updates on that to kick us off, or any background?
Well, I'm finding up with the alley names to their system. So when they dispatch fire, EMS, and police, is unnamed alleys are named now. So
Yay!
and then the next step would be for signage. I can't remember off the top of my head on the street for 10th, 11th.
Something like that, yeah.
I would suggest doing the third every 3 years to minimize cost. I have a list of ones that would be for higher importance. We would call such as of that nature that should be signed first.
Would you be able to determine those higher priority ones?
I have a list ready.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, if you haven't already, can you re-forward the list with your prioritization? And we'll move forward with those highest ones.
I
You're
just
awesome.
counted 15, so it'd be 5 a year or something, yeah. I'm
Okay.
sure.
That is very good to be moving forward on that. If there's no other questions or comments on item G, we will now skip back. Thank you, Carly. To 7E. So we talked about this in brief a number of times, but most recently at our February business meeting. So the Multimodal Transportation Fund for 2024 is for Arch Street paving and includes design for traffic calming measures. So our engineer Matt Pitch presented updated drawings that were made in consultation with the Sylvan Canoe Club, Steel City Rowing, and others along that stretch. Fortunately, many of the things that we would hope to incorporate are a matter of paint, so they're pretty low dollar amounts. Some, such as speed humps, are higher dollar amounts, so we have to carefully consider whether or not the grant can encompass that. Thank you, Jason. So here are the diagrams that were shared in brief last meeting. So I wanted to allow some space for us to review this more closely together tonight. And also I wanted to point out that we welcome feedback on what we have, but we are uncomfortable with the section which is adjacent to Riverbank Park, which has been a reoccurring issue over the last several years in regards to if there are lines for parking, which side of the street should it go on? Should it go on the park side, but potentially where children may be coming out from in between parked cars and an oncoming car may not see them? Or shall we continue on the side that is opposite the park, but has been known to have many, many, many neighbor complaints because of people parking in the grass or blocking people's driveways? there is no clear winning solution that we can come up with. So after our December walkthrough, we did reach out to LTAP, which is the free PennDOT Local Technical Assistance Program. They have us in the queue to come out to give us free technical guidance from a traffic engineer on this situation and really the whole stretch. However, this is the time of year where they don't have funding for it, so we have to wait a few months until that can happen. The risk of waiting is that this could push the paving into 2027, which is fine as per the grant, but I just don't know as a council and a community if that is a timeline that we are amenable to. So feel free to click through the various diagrams and say anything you wish.
So you're saying while we're deciding on humps or not, Arch Street would not get paved?
Humps, particularly the financial mechanism for doing those, but mostly the parking at Riverbank Park.
But that we can pave the road and then figure out how to paint it later. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
You'll have a whole bunch of Arch Street residents here if we don't pave that road in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I don't know if for safety reasons, there's a reason we need to do certain markings at the time of paving, but we can certainly forward that question to Matt.
I mean, we're worried about a street. And I love that, but there is a girl she's impaired with her seeing, and we still haven't fixed that. I'm baffled by this conversation. I'm sorry, it really irritates me that the girl has a walking, I don't know what is the term?
Walking
Is it
stick?
correct? And I have even spoken about it 7 or 8 times, and I'm just saying, like, we're talking about a street, we should be worrying about a safety of a girl trying to get to her school bus.
We are worried about that, Kelly, absolutely.
It's been a year, so.
Well, we can't correct for some of the things last year, but Susie did bring that up and Matt was able to provide an updated timeline, which is contingent on the weather, but we're hopeful for, believe it was March, as long as the weather complies. So frustrating, discouraging,
It's
not
disgusting.
right. But we're working to fix that. In the meantime, we do have a whole lot of money to make Arch Street as accessible and better for residents of all abilities. So I think we also need to keep our focus on that planning.
But it does look like, I mean, at least on this 5th and final design drawing, that this would probably be the one that would need to wait on paving just because of the fact that it incorporates a speed hump.
Okay.
So all the other ones just had signage and markings. So this one looks like this would probably be that driver, and you can kind of see right here. I don't know if my cursor moves on the
Yeah.
right here is where the hump would be located at right there. So but all the other ones are just markings and signage is what it looks like.
Okay, I think that
Is it that portion that's holding it up, or the other area where the park?
I don't, is Riverbank?
No, I
Park-
don't think
I don't think the park's even incorporated. Oh, yeah, it's right here. I mean, this would be the, yeah, this is the first, this is the first section here by the park here that I think there's probably still some discussion on what side everything's gonna be on. But it's that last section that probably has more of the structural.
Yeah, the
You
hump
know.
is at the other end. This end is the end by the pickleball court. And I guess the way it's drawn there, the green line is where the parking would be,
bike lane,
a bike lane.
yes,
Where the
Yeah.
car's gonna park.
right,
Oh dear.
yes,
Yeah.
Oh no.
right.
No, bike lane would be on the other side or going another street because people are parking where that green line is.
The bike lane is actually a pretty important component of this grant and why we were awarded it. I know Rep. McAndrew feels very strongly about this being an important component of our riverfront redevelopment. So hence the complexity involved with this.
I suppose this super committee meeting. Part of the point of it is for us to talk about it now and try to come closer to a decision.
Discuss, yes.
Hmm. Well, I say put the bike lane on the other side and park the cars where the green line is. And don't.
If that
wait.
was your home, I bet you'd be really mad if they parked in your yard though.
They
I
are.
bet.
Well, they can't park in the yard. We'll make
They
sure.
will
that-
though.
Well,
They
they
do.
They,
They park in my yard and I live on North.
they need to
So-
have tickets then or something. I don't know.
I mean, I'm just telling you, I experienced it with those people next
Right.
door to me and and there's signs that the.
Yes.
DPW.
I
put up.
get
yes.
that, but we also don't want to run over any children.
I
who are running- yeah.
agree. I think it's very
So-
dangerous, this whole setup.
It is
What
dangerous.
else?
Yeah,
No, I don't have really any suggestions. I'm just saying they're both sketch.
I agree with you, Kelly. I don't have any suggestions here either. That's why I'm leaning on the side of wait for the best possible
Well, it's
information.
Let's ask this, what's the more, out of the two options, what's the safer solution?
Parking probably on their on their yard.
Well, yeah, but. I mean, I think that in the beginning, they did that a lot more than they're doing it now, and we opened up an area. On the other side of the pickleball courts that you can't see in this slide. Where we created what, 4 other parking places?
We have a
Right by
suggestion
the
over there,
old
maybe
garage.
I'll tell you.
By
I
the-
have a concern, and that's if you're flip flopping which side, if your bike lane is on the right
Yeah,
lane and then down here it's on the left lane.
yeah,
You've created a whole other
Right,
traffic issue.
right. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that either. Yeah,
Francie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Francie Robb, I'm a member, I'm a past president of the Sylvan Kid Club. And so we've been involved, appreciate. It's down at the other end, yeah, so. Change is always difficult, and so we're just trying to keep our members. Aware of what's coming down the pipe. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have maybe this, I don't know if this would help, but what if, I mean, they're paying for it anyway, would they potentially put a curb along those people's yards? Cause
I
that
love
would
it.
help. Solve it right there.
See,
But
we've
that-
always had a problem down there with parking.
Yeah.
People would park on their grass.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you put a sidewalk, make it a little. I mean, curb, yeah, thank you. Did I say sidewalk the first time? Kid? I'm sorry, you know what I meant. You know, I made it a little bit high as we can make it, and then, you know. I don't know if that's true. Would be
for some
true.
reason, I'm thinking that,
We're gonna need more.
those words came out of Matt's mouth at one point, something about curbs. Am I thinking
And-
of that or something?
That
else?
solves it, right? We're done.
Yeah,
That's fine.
it may have, and I think that's a worthwhile suggestion.
Yeah,
So my mind immediately went to curbs for the bike lane, but you mean a curb just to delineate their property and you would still
Yes.
park next to the curb. Okay. Cool.
Cause then you're gonna probably get a flat tire, so, or you mess your rim up.
Some kind of barrier. I like it.
well, let's ask Matt, but we
This-
can't wait too long. I don't know, unless we can separate, the only thing about on the other end. By Steel City Rowing and Sylvan Canoe Club. If we're going to put in a hump, it needs to be done while they're paving.
Yes. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do all of this and add a curb or markings to the Riverbank Park section later, but I'm
I
not
think
the,
that those homeowners would be,
I think that's
very
a
no.
good idea. Okay, so we have some feedback and questions for Matt, our engineer. Any other comments or questions before we move to the next item? All right, very good. We are going to move to item 7F. And immediately following item 6, the financial report. Both are with our wonderful interim borough manager, Jason Daly. Mr. Daly,
Bring up the next share screen item here.
internet complying, I should say.
Everybody keep saying little prayers. This stays on.
All right, so what you'll see there in front of you, I included some information. During our last discussion at the last meeting, I just kind of went over a little bit about what the differences were between the manager position and the secretary treasurer position. And this is in no means supposed to be a comprehensive overview of that position. And, and talking with a few of you who have been down this path with both the secretary treasurer and manager, you have some thoughts, I know, as to what those positions did and what you were able to get out of the positions in the past. But, for those of you that just need a refresher on this or just a high level review, the manager position is an optional position in the borough code, meaning that you can have one or you cannot have one. It's not a requirement. The secretary treasurer position is required. So, if you do just have a borough manager, oftentimes the secretary treasurer duties are also assigned to the borough manager's position, but you can't not have a secretary treasurer. There is a legal requirement that the borough appoints someone to that role. Some of the functions, the borough manager's position is really head of administration, heavy in administration. The secretary treasurer position is more records and finance related. They the manager oversees staff and directs staff. The secretary treasurer position typically does not supervise staff, so that would fall to either the direct reports like AJ's position would then report directly to council, as well as like the codes office and all those types of things. There's no direct supervision under the secretary treasurer. And then the big thing is that there's custody of information lies with the secretary treasurer. They take on a more compliance role. They take ownership of the accounting and the custody of records, whereas the manager is more oversight. It's more operational driven in that regard. From a high level, those are some of the big areas where they lie. From a bigger perspective, the borough manager would be assigned areas of managing operations. I think taking on a more strategic planning role, working with council, providing some vision assistance with helping to lay things out with council. If you can envision, they are more considered like an executive management level. They implement decisions of council, whereas from the secretary treasurer perspective, by code they are more black and white, nuts and bolts. They keep records, they manage records, they make sure that fiscal policies are being adhered to, but they're very statutory in nature, meaning that the borough code really is the driving force there for the duties and assignments that they're supposed to be doing. And the reason that I wanted to just kind of talk about this from this high level is that when we've laid out the job description and you all have seen what we've kind of have gone through in the questions that we've asked the borough manager, candidates that we brought in. They were very high level. They were management related questions. They were executive leadership questions. I feel that I still think that from a high level role, I still think that this council does need a borough manager, but I also think that we've seen from our number one, from what we've gone through, council has weighed in on several different things, things like salary, things like expectations of this position, the job duties that we think this position should be doing. That I thought that it would be good to just lay out for you what the difference is in those two positions, and for there to be some discussion about does council think that you still need a borough manager, or should we be looking more at that secretary treasurer role and lowering what the expectations and the job description is that we've put out there. So to that end, I'll just open that up to discussion by council at this point.
I'd like to walk back in time. So Stephanie was a borough manager. Prior to Stephanie, we had Christine, who was a borough secretary. Prior to Christine, we had Jerry, who was a borough manager, but part-time. Then prior to that, this is where I need people to help me out.
Bonnie Conway,
Was she a secretary?
yes.
She was the secretary, then we appointed her to borough manager.
You did,
Yes,
full-time?
yes.
Okay,
And she done at that time both. She took care of everything.
okay. How long was she employed with the borough approximately?
Oh, God. It's a long time, 30, 40 years.
5 years.
It was something,
Oh, man.
yeah, somewhere between 30 and 40 years.
Okay, great. So Mayor Dave or anyone up on council who was still here when she was here, does your recollection of her tasks overlie with the borough manager description that Jason has presented?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay,
Not how I remember it. She did a lot of things that she'd been doing.
you
for-
were here?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Towards the end, yeah.
yeah. As technology became more part of the job,
Uh-huh.
that wasn't her strong suit.
Okay,
So there were issues that arose toward, the end of her tenure here.
Yeah, and you're right about that. The technology caught up with it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And she had health issues that prevented her from doing some stuff also.
Does
Like,
she live in the community?
Yeah,
She did,
In Verona.
yeah,
Okay.
she passed away.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Jerry was very part-time. Yes. So,
I just wanted to put together the chronology for everyone here tonight because I have lived here for 10 years. So my memory goes through Jerry. I was feeling like the borough manager was a newer idea, but clearly it's not actually.
well, Bonnie was the secretary. She got a lot of help from people who were on the council at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but this is what I remember. I mean, going way back, Nick and Tony were helping her out quite a bit with things like the budget and that type of thing.
Sandy, were you on council when she was here? Would you speak to that a bit more?
But you need to use the mic or they can't hear you. I know, come on. So you take the mic with you, go and sit down, that's fine. You don't have to stand here if you don't want to.
Nancy just wants you to feel like a celebrity with the microphone.
I just want everyone to be able to hear, that's.
I know.
Bonnie was phenomenal. Okay,
Mhm.
she did everything. I think she even cleaned the toilets. Okay. Annette Bracken worked a lot with her.
Mhm.
And she took care of the budget. She took care of borough business. People in the community loved her and respected her. She knew how to treat people
Mhm.
like human beings.
Mhm.
Maybe you could ask me the questions you want to know. I don't know.
Was did she often work more than 40 hours? It sounds like maybe.
She put in her time and didn't charge the borough anything.
Yeah.
if I may, anytime we had a disaster, she was down there.
Yes.
What about
yes.
community events? Was she often
She
there?
was at community
Yeah.
events.
How did we first recruit her? Where, do we know how?
She was here when I came on,
She
and
was
that's
here.
36 years ago.
Yeah.
Was
yeah.
she on council before accepting the staff position?
She wasn't on
She was
council.
was never on council.
She was borough secretary.
Okay. And do you know, to your knowledge, did she have like a degree in public administration or was it mostly learning?
Honestly, don't.
She did have
She may-
some sort of public relations background.
Okay.
I'm not 100%,
Okay.
but I mean, she didn't deal with this technology. She had the good old fashioned tape recorder
Sure.
Yep,
and
Right.
is that right where Jason is?
And she got minutes done and we had those minutes the following week and
Yeah.
it wasn't 2 months later for
Okay.
council to approve it. It was the following
Okay.
week.
Right, right.
She was on target.
Wow.
And if you remember, we never had a borough manager. She did it all.
She did it all. And I'm not kidding. She did clean the toilets because I came down the one day to meet with her regarding finances.
Huh.
And she came out of the bathroom with her little brush.
Wow.
So, then after that, when we started looking for it, we hired a company that came in, and that company at the time said
Yeah.
that this borough was way too small for a manager, and you didn't need a full-time manager.
Oh, okay.
So that's the reason why Jerry was part-time, but Jerry also did the finances for.
Right. Now, was Bonnie assisted by anyone else in the office? Did she have an administrative secretary?
She had nobody.
She had- it was
She had
literally
Annette
all-
Bracken to
Annette-
work with the police.
That's it.
She.
And like I says, technology caught up with her.
Yeah, but she was able to
And
answer
she-
that phone. When
yes,
you
most
called out
definitely.
here,
Yeah,
that phone was answered by a human being.
Yeah.
And there wasn't
She was
any
always Johnny
return
on the
phone
spot.
calls.
yeah.
From what I remember, she was always Johnny on the spot with
Yeah.
the phone and everything. Yeah.
You think she had the answer, she didn't have, she got it back to you the next day.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
And I think 35,000, or was that
Yeah,
Jerry's?
it was-
That was Jerry's salary. I think Bonnie was less than 35,000.
Yeah,
So
What was the most important part of how she did her job?
public relations, she
Public
knew how to relate to people. She knew how to relate to council. Even when you disagreed with her, she
Put that aside.
put it aside, right?
yeah.
And it sounds like she was also very timely with her responses.
Yes.
Timeliness.
She
And
was
she
a nice lady. She
and
was
she
just
was-
overall a nice lady.
She was also willing to.
Everybody liked her.
Yeah. I'm kind of grouping that in with like public relations, but also a third thing I'm hearing is she wasn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and get right into whatever
Exactly.
needed done.
Exactly, whatever needed done.
Very personable.
So she had everyone's respect.
Good.
Okay, so my follow-up question is how do we find our next Bonnie? Technological considerations aside, everyone's going to have something that is a shortcoming. But it sounds like those three things that Sandy highlighted could be accomplished by the secretary treasurer. So the big difference here is the title and the salary and somewhat the job descriptions. Do you agree that the things that Sandy and kind of collectively everyone highlighted could be covered by the secretary treasurer role technically?
Well,
I was kind of looking at Jason first, but we'll
Yeah.
definitely go round robin. Yeah.
I think, the secretary treasurer has that legal requirement, right? That,
Yeah.
and I don't want to underscore that there's boxes that need checked with that position, right? I think that it's the borough manager piece of it that probably is more, because I really do think that you could find with, not a lot of hard searching, we could bring the job description more in line with what that secretary treasurer position would require and certainly lower the salary down. I think there's no doubt in my mind that we could find that. I think that it's whether or not the borough manager position is of value to council. And some of those things that, when you think about what is it that's not compliance related, that's not, clerical in nature, records management, finance related, that you value or you have valued in that manager position in the past, that, does that outweigh the need to just have that other position in that role? I think some of the, that there are a lot of, because there's certainly a lot of activity that I think that council expects that position to, participate in and to be outgoing. And I understand that you may have had a secretary treasurer in the past, or, whoever this person was before, that might have performed some of those duties that might not necessarily have been required of the position. But, some of those things do fall under more of a manager related position that you would, you would need to really, walk a fine line with, I think. But I think without a doubt, you could definitely write the job description down to the secretary treasurer position and really bring that, bring the position down a few notches from where we're at right now.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You want to
Okay.
kick us off? Go ahead. That's fine.
Well, I'm looking at this list. I think that if we had a borough secretary, and what I'm thinking of is Christine, because that's our only official borough secretary that might have been above and beyond what this description is saying,
Right.
because it doesn't look like, according to this list, that a borough secretary is running the borough operations or supervising the staff or coming up with strategies and and, you know, operational roles and executive management, and what do we do if we don't have that? So in my opinion, the way that it's looking through some conversations with Jason and other people, we either need to figure out how to pay a little bit more if we want the full borough manager package. We're supervising the staff and implementing our own decisions, and I, for one, do not want to do that. I just don't. I'll quit before I have to do that. That's just too much. Executive management, no, we can't do it.
Jason, can you remind us of the salary ranges for these two roles approximately?
So I think for this, the secretary treasurer position, you're 55 to 65, is where maybe even upwards of 70 at the top end. I think for the manager position, you're 75 to 90. And at 75, you're expecting someone who is in that lower entry level type position, or possibly a secretary treasurer who may be looking at a manager step up, type position.
So, and what we did with Christine was we hired her to lower level. We spent the extra money that we would have for a borough manager on someone to train her and coach her for a year. And then she with her degree in public administration and everything else was able to be a borough manager, actually probably in less than a year. And I don't know whether that's something we could do again. You know, start out at the lower level and increase their duties as time goes on. That's another option, I guess.
We'll go ahead and go round robin. Can we go this way? Kelly, do you want to share your opinions on the roles and what you would lean towards for us?
I mean, I've already said that, like, Sandy had the suggestion about, I don't know if you did too, so I don't remember if you were involved or not, but like going to colleges and hearing them at a school.
The apprenticeship.
I just don't understand why we don't have money for this. Just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't know. I think we just spend way too much money on silly things. I mean, this isn't silly, but it's chewing off way too much. We don't even get paid. You know, we can't even pay ourselves. And this is a lot. So I think it's insane to pay that amount of money for just this little borough. That's my opinion.
Yeah, great. Thank you. John?
Well, it would make sense we could try to go back to having a secretary treasurer and then train up again if they have the opportunity to essentially have a person become the borough manager from the secretary treasurer role, over time, pick up those skills and become, more of a strategic operational, supervisory person. As opposed to just doing clerical, and records keeping, but we do have the barriers of the finances right now. I mean, I don't know where we're at as far as, how competitive we're gonna be, even if we went up a little bit as far as what we can offer to get a manager, as opposed to other boroughs out there who are also looking for a manager right now. And the talent pool, from what we've seen, I think so far, I don't know. I don't know who's out there. I mean, we haven't really had too many from what I've seen that have been knocking on our door. So maybe we could try the secretary treasurer route and see how we can do at this point in time, and perhaps train that person up
I'm hearing between you and Nancy, and Kelly, feel free
How-
to chime in if you agree, but
No.
the opportunity for growth is
But
something.
that would require us to become more operational as a council, and I do see problems with how
Mhm.
would we supervise people as a council, as opposed to, usually it's one person that would be a supervisor, or are we gonna have like 7 supervisors? How does that work? We'd have to find a way to implement the way we're gonna run the borough from an operational standpoint.
We'd be talking about,
Okay.
yeah, AJ and Teresa.
That's basically it.
Okay.
Well, I think to some degree though, when you think about some of the projects and initiatives that. It's not just staff, right? Right now, there's a contracted service for code enforcement. There's some big initiatives that are being hatched with rental registrations and inspections that are. Those are strategic. That are gonna need to be developed and implemented. I do think that some of that stuff gets managed up, I think in a secretary treasurer role versus in a borough manager role, but. Just thinking through what some of your initiatives are that you just reviewed. Think about how those are going to get implemented and executed. And then line those up with the manager or the secretary treasurer role just to see who would be doing those.
Yeah, right. Good point.
Yep.
We'll move on to Curtis.
I think it sounds like we've had more, I don't want to say success, but with a secretary in the past. I mean, things got shaken up this year with council anyway. We might as well go the extra step and, see where the secretary can take us. I mean, unless you can get a borough manager for, what we are willing to pay them, which I guess doesn't seem like there's many, so.
I just want to point out to everyone that we budgeted 85 on the budget this year for that role.
Can I ask you a question about that?
And it falls in within the range of 75 to 90.
What is the secretary included with that? Is she's part-time, correct? I've never actually met her.
Teresa?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's part-time.
So. What if she hourly?
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't know what she gets paid as a bidder. So, I mean, if you're gonna pay 65. Just go, the whole shebang,
Yeah, but
Like I
there's
said-
more into it than that, isn't there?
I'm not gonna be. Again, we don't get paid for this. I don't have all the time to come over here and boss these people, I'm not their boss. I don't wanna
You mean if we were,
supervise everybody and,
you mean if we were to go the secretary route?
yeah.
So you're on the borough manager
I
route.
don't know, why aren't we looking into colleges route? I don't understand why that's not even a topic. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand why we're in this big $90,000, you know what I mean? Why can't we look at it? Why are we even? Again, I don't understand. It's blowing my mind. This is a small borough. We're talking about insane money.
But you're gonna have the issue with, even if you do the apprenticeship, you're gonna have the issue with, once these people get experience and move on, and you got other boroughs offering.
Because we're growing now. We weren't like this before.
Yeah.
You gotta think of it that way, We gotta worry about paying our police and, protecting everybody. I just think there's other things that we could look into and we're just not.
I like the idea. I mean, I'm all for it. I just think that you're gonna be recycling every 2 to 3 years.
But
once
they
you
could
get-
stay. Because
Yeah,
we
I
would
mean-
grow and we would have different money next year and the year after.
Yeah, I mean, if they're,
I mean,
yeah, if we're
90
willing
right
to
now
pay-
seems, I'm just trying to stay on the path that we're on.
does 90 seem high or low to you?
To me, it seems crazy just for this year. You know what I mean? Am I wrong? No. Okay, because I feel like I'm the crazy one. I don't know. I just feel like it's just this year we need to, and I wish you were stay here. I love you to death, but you're not staying. I'm just gonna blame you. I would spend if you stayed down, say yes.
Yeah, he need more than 90.
But I just think, yeah, oh, I know, no, just 90, that's it, that's it. I just think we should just look into other things, that's all.
So, just for clarification for everyone, who may be less familiar with the process, Jason's not making these numbers up off the top of his head. It's commensurate with, salary data that's provided from, I'm not sure if it's ALOM, from ALOM. So this is like a compilation of what people are actually paying, believe it or not, even though it feels like an astronomical amount. It would be like laughable to ask for a borough manager at 60, for example. So just for clarification, but I hear Kurt and Kelly are actually saying some really interesting things. Kurt's saying the risk of doing an apprenticeship is we could lose them, and Kelly's saying maybe, or maybe we're in a position to pay them at that point once they've proven themselves. Do you want to comment on at all yet about this apprenticeship idea that you're playing with?
Sure. Yeah. So, we're pretty fortunate in this market right now that, well, it just, in general in the Pittsburgh market, that we have some programs. IUP has a master's in public administration program. Pitt has the Wksp program. CMU has its own, master's program in public policy. And so, every one of those schools is generating, graduates every year that they're not just graduating and looking for borough manager positions or secretary treasurer positions. A lot of them go on to, political think tanks and, all that kind of stuff in the public sector, doing all types of jobs. But some of them are coming out looking for, to stay in local government and to get into this management level role. I was recently exposed in another community that I'm working with right now, someone who's coming out of that program and, had some interest in it. Now, they were scared to death. They applied for the position. We walked them through the interview steps. And I think as it started to become a reality that might actually take place, they were like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I don't know about being a borough manager, a borough secretary treasurer. I don't know if I can do this, right? Because there's not a school for this, for this exact job. But I think that there's interest in that out there. Now, the challenge with it is that it's going to take, I think, the salary expectation of those students coming out of there was around 60 to 65,000 with no experience whatsoever. That's what somebody coming out with a master's degree is going to be looking for, even if they don't have any experience, right? And so, you think, about what that looks like and what a training that person up is going to look like, by if it's a consultant, if it's, additional training you're going to send that person to, whatever that looks like. I would expect that you're going to put another $15,000 to $20,000 into that person over the first 6 months to a year's worth of time where they're checking in and that type of thing. But perhaps for the first, number one, getting somebody in the door that's sitting in the seat for 40 hours a week at least is, that's the first step, right? But then really developing them, making them into what you want them to be as your next borough manager or secretary treasurer, I think is something that you could really work and develop. I think there's as we start to get into the end of the school year right now, as these students start to graduate, I think maybe there's an opportunity for us to reach out to see, hey, if, maybe start going into some of these classes and talking to them about this opportunity, to IUP or to CMU or something like that, to say, this is what this is. This is what a borough manager is. We'd love to see one of you as a possible candidate for this, and, see if there's some interest in that. I don't know. It's just, it's something different. I think, there's not a lot of communities that are going that route to look for candidates. I think the internship is one way to go about it, but those are usually one projects and then they're done, and then they're moving on to their, to whatever it is that they're looking to, to do. So it's an idea. I think it kind of falls in line, Kelly, with what you're, the path that you're kind of going down, but it might also, I think, fill that gap of, could you still get an elevated level skill set? Certainly someone who's educated, that's heading down that path, if we explore that a little bit more.
It is risky because I will say that seat It's not the easiest seat to sit in because you're dealing with budgets. You're dealing with employees. You're dealing with the public. You're dealing with disasters. You're dealing with all kinds of X factors every day. And it's not, and you're dealing with, pompous council people. And
You at pompous council person, so I want to make sure we hear everyone who hasn't spoke first before
I'm
we go on
sorry.
the second. That's okay. I'm going to switch gears back then to
All right.
Sylvia and then Dave, and then if anyone else wants to weigh in again.
all right.
Sylvia, where are you leaning on this issue?
This is very interesting. You were talking about colleges. I wish I would have spoke before you, because then nobody would have said, oh, she took your idea. But Robert Morris College is an excellent school, not just because I went there and my sister, but it is an excellent school. I graduated from there. And they have a wonderful program where they find jobs for people. That was one of the big things that they started day one. And those people are going to be ready, as you said, Jason, to graduate very soon. And they're going to be looking for work. And these are people that are trained in the business world. That's their job, to learn how to professionally perform what we need. And we've never thought of reaching out. And I don't know why I didn't think of it, but it came to me very clearly as I sat here that maybe somebody could, that we could contact Robert Morris.
Sylvia, being an alum, is that something you'd be willing to do once we draft the new position?
Absolutely, I would be glad to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Mayor Dave?
Well, I agree with everybody what they're saying, and I understand what they're saying. But I think we got to look at one thing. I know when you mentioned Robert Morris, my daughter graduated Robert Morris Business, and 2 days later she got a job over Davison Design Inventions over in RIDC Park. But she didn't know everything. There was a woman that took her under her wing, so to speak, and she learned off of her. And I think, to get somebody that's just out of college, yeah, they learned everything in school just like my daughter did. But when you're thrown into the situation in real life, I think it changes a lot of things. Somebody's going to have to mentor, this person on how to do things. I kind of look at it like when the chief, when this board hires like somebody out of the academy. I mean, they know everything. They're taught, to do it the right way, and so on and so forth. But when you're out there on the street in real life, you're not in a controlled environment. It's the real world out there. A traffic stop can go bad real quick. But in the academy, just like, you graduate college, you were in a controlled environment where your professor will say, well, you should do this but now you got all this paperwork to do. You got to deal with the public. You got to deal with this entire board.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And the other thing too is, getting back to the police department, we hired a lot of good people, but they, coming out of the academy and coming through, but they didn't stay here, for the money reasons. They moved on, and I don't blame anybody for moving on. And, yeah, it is a money thing, but I think if you, and this is once again my opinion, got a borough manager that's, going to start them at 75, 80,000, 85,000 or whatever it may be, they're going to stay a while. And they've, have somewhat of experience in contacts and what have you. They know how to do grants. There's somebody, an intern, they're going to know how to do big grants and work with this, the solicitor and the engineer, But
Can I ask you a question? We were considering people that weren't fully capable, and they would have need trained. So then what? You're gonna pay them $90,000 and they still need the training and they're.
no, I'm not saying that.
And I'm just saying, so to your point,
Mhm.
not coming at you, I'm just saying, like, to your point, like, they still need trained. They're still gonna have to learn on their own.
Right.
So why wouldn't you take a chance on somebody that's coming out of school and they're hot, right?
But are they
They're
gonna,
ready.
how long are they gonna stay here? I mean, once they start getting,
That $90,000 person is gonna stay here. How do you know? you don't know, she could quit tomorrow, or he, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yes.
It goes both ways, right?
No
I
matter
I
where
look
you.
at it as a big picture, not being
Well, we're
narrow.
all throwing our opinions in, that's my.
No matter where you
I
go.
wasn't looking at
No, I-
disagreeing,
I
was just kind of
understand.
throwing that out there too, to say like,
Right,
there's still,
they could leave at any time, you're right.
It's always a risk.
right,
Yeah.
No matter
and-
where you go, you're gonna have to be trained to some degree.
Mhm.
I don't care where you go, because every company has a different set of policies, rules, regulations.
Yep.
Even different type of job.
The only difference is, are you gonna pay for the experience now, or are you gonna pay for the experience later? That's the only difference.
And if you pay for the experience later, you are also paying for somebody to train that new person. So let's say we found someone out of school and we could pay them 65, but then we're paying someone for that year. I mean, and this is lowballing it, 20,000, 15, 20,000. So that takes them right back up. So we're gonna pay the
so are you
same.
gonna do that for the 90,000 person?
Well, no, because
Yeah.
first of all,
Says yes.
no. well,
I'm agreeing.
That's her opinion.
No, I'm agreeing. Yeah.
Oh. When we were doing our little initial, negotiations, let's say, for the person that decided to go somewhere else, cause they got a higher salary. That's why I wanted to start her on the lower end. But someone with her skills, or even the other guy's skills, would have learned very quickly, and they wouldn't need to know a thing about the finance part, which was a big plus. They just needed to
I
learn,
just,
maybe, I don't know how long, Jason, you felt like we would have had to ask you to introduce them to the actual borough manager job, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months at the most. And you wouldn't have had to be here full time. They could call you on the phone if they had a question, that kind of thing. So that's how I would have handled that. I would not have agreed to 90 anyway.
Kelly, I want to make sure you had a chance to finish your point.
I mean, I just gotta give up on this. I feel like there's no,
It,
you guys are set on like, I feel like if you're all set on just 90,000.
No,
I
no.
don't
Nobody's
understand.
set on
why-
90
why
nobody's
would you
set
just
on
explore it?
90,000.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nobody's
I don't
set
know.
on 90,000
Nope.
at all.
I understand, but that's what they want. And that's what
Well, there's a range, 75 to
I
90.
understand, but
Yeah.
I don't feel heard, and I don't think anybody wants to hear it. And I think everybody else gets it.
No,
Right?
I'm hearing you for
I
sure.
just feel like, I don't understand why you're not even, like, look into it. At
Yes,
least, like,
I
give it
think
a
that's what
chance.
we are doing, but all I'm saying and putting in,
We're comparing about stuff that could happen, but it could happen with the other person
Right,
too, so.
agreed.
It's just,
my point
much.
is that we take the person with the lower amount that we're paying them and less experience and train them. The money's gonna be approximately the same. That's all I'm
I
saying.
don't know, I think people that come out of college are very smart and, on top of things, so I don't agree on that, but.
Kelly, take a vote, see who wants to.
Well, we have to
Take
train.
a vote.
yeah, if I'm
I'll
understanding
tell you,
correctly.
no, I would not agree to 90.
Yeah, I
would
mean,
not.
we
I
can
couldn't do that.
We probably should consider worst case scenarios though. So if
Mhm.
we hire someone at 90, they're still gonna need, to everyone's point, 15 to 20K of training. So now we're talking, well over 6 figures versus Kelly's point about finding someone in an apprenticeship. They're still looking at like 65, but that puts us at 85 with training, which is a more doable figure for all of us. Yes.
Right,
I'm just saying, look into it.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's the
I
consensus.
think
I
so.
really do.
Yeah.
No,
Coming back to Jason for final thoughts, as well as what action item you need from council to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've heard from everyone is that, I think we want to take another crack at the job description. Maybe lower the expectations that we have in the job description, lower the skill set. Start reaching out to the universities with these master's programs and start feeling out, is there a pool there for us to, possibly tap for our next position? I'm not gonna say secretary, treasurer, manager yet until, because who knows, maybe there is somebody there that would accept a position like this, knowing that they need to be trained up and go in that direction. But how about if I'll work to adjust the job description and put a plan together to outreach over the next 2 weeks and get that back to you all for approval, and we'll go from there.
That sounds great. Thank you, Sylvia, for being willing to help solicit potential candidates from RMU. Do we have anyone who would be willing to do the same thing for Gispia?
For where?
Gispia Pitt
Or what? I couldn't hear. it.
or Pitt?
I'll reach out to Gispia.
Thank you. I'm happy to take CMU. I don't know if we have a contact. for
I was
IEP.
gonna say, I'll take CMU.
You're there.
I'll just
okay.
walk across the street.
Well, I think I might have a contact there.
Okay.
So.
But
I think I might. too.
Okay, excellent.
My kids work there.
Yes.
Both of them.
Okay, good plan. Will we need an exec between now and the next business meeting?
No matter who we get, they're gonna have to be trained. I don't care where you've been. Nobody runs an exact pattern. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. So you're gonna have training. I don't care where they come from.
I mean, unless we happen to stumble upon the next Bonnie, in which case
Right.
we will have a big street party.
She's out there somewhere,
Maybe, or he.
I'm sure.
We'll move on then. After that, very good, lengthy but very good discussion. Back to the last discussion item, which is the financial report, item 6, again with Mr. Daly.
Sure. So I wanted to just take some time, and I will try to be brief, but there's a lot to cover here. This probably has the most amount of slides that we looked at tonight. Was really, and this is kind of like the precursor, I think, to the 2025 audit. And what I've done here is just to really present you with a recap of the 2025 finances from the general fund, the sewer and water fund, capital fund, and liquid fuels fund. So in what my high level review was of this, and some immediate things that I kind of see that we need to do, I think just from my initial review here. So the first part of here, and I'll introduce every fund this way, which is the top section is what we budgeted. The bottom part is what the actuals were. So, our budget, we budgeted for a surplus expectation of $54,902 in our general fund. We actually, we took in $85,000 less than that. Our expenses were $57,000 more than that. But overall, our net in the budget was a positive $26,000, mainly because we budgeted for a surplus. So we were to the good $26,000, but we expected to be to the good $54,000. So that was kind of how our general fund played out a little bit there. So some of the reasons for that, just based off of what I saw here, and what I did was that I provided in these upcoming slides here, the actual line item accounts that I found that were more likely the culprits for, all of the numbers that I'm presenting you with here tonight, is that, we over budgeted our state grant revenue by $100,000, meaning we didn't take in that amount of grant money. And our solid waste number, we took in $53,000 less. Now, mind you, the report that I'm looking at is the year end of 2025. So we don't get our Oakmont disbursement for that until our January numbers. So there is some correcting that's going to go on with this particular number. But I'll come back to that minus 53,000 in solid waste. That's our trash number that we collect and that everybody pays quarterly. The other thing was that we were over budget in some revenues here. Our fixed asset proceeds, meaning the sale or the compensation from losses like insurance claims and things like that, was plus 22,000. We took in more money than budgeted in delinquent taxes. And then also our RAD money that we get from the county was to the positive $10,000. So these were some of the reasons for the revenue adjustments that I saw going into how we finished 2025. Some of the expenditure issues where we didn't spend all of our money. We had a capital project for public works that we did not spend $168,000 on. Our full-time officer salaries were under by $80,000 in the police department. Our health insurance was $40,000 less than what was budgeted. And, you know, there's personnel reasons for a lot of this stuff. We had a lot of personnel off and that we weren't paying their benefits because they were off. So we just didn't spend that money. And that could also go into why some of the full-time salaries weren't spent as well. We spent a lot on, you know, part-time and the, you know, some of the other ones, but our full-time officer salaries were low. Now, where we did spend more money was in parks capital. We spent $133,000 more than was budgeted. Engineering services, we spent $45,000 more than was budgeted. Then in you know, in the line item called consulting fees, we spent $36,000 more than was budgeted, which probably accounted more for my fees. But this was offset also by the manager's salary not being paid out of that line item. So you know, just some areas. The other item on this particular one is that I believe that some of the engineering fees were recuperated through the sewer fund grants that we did receive. So some of those things, you know, I still have to look into, but from a high level, these are the areas where we were, you know, that we were over and why I think that, you know, some of the numbers were what they were. Some of the recommendations that I have here is that I think that we need to really focus in on our grant forecasting, probably being a little bit more conservative, you know, rather than you know, calling out that we're going to receive the whole grant, maybe lowering the expectation that we might not always get what we, you know, set out to do. I think that we need to look at how we request our engineering services, require that scopes be signed off on and that communication goes to the manager's office so that that can be streamlined and the manager then can understand exactly what's being requested or make those requests directly of the engineer, you know, for that. And as we were going through the budget for the 26 budget, you know, the solid waste contract starts in May of every year. And that's whenever we were expecting to initiate the solid waste increase. You know, I'm actually going to propose that we initiate that increase in March next month in order to not have that same, you know, loss happen that we did to the solid waste fund this year in 25. So we'll increase that. You know, the recommendation will be that we increase that in March. And then I think moving forward in future years, it should just be on an annual basis rather than trying to wait those 5 months and initiate that. Because I think that got a little wonky in the revenues. And that's why it looks like the general fund subsidized the solid waste program. So, but again, that's just a high level thought that I have. As far as our sewer fund goes, we budgeted, you can see what we budgeted here, and overall, our budget was to the good 69,000. However, our actuals was overspent $134,267. Now, this was a direct result of us taking in some additional grant money that's not captured in the sewer fund, and also paying off that debt. We had debt service that was, that we were getting to the front of, and so those payments, accumulated, and that's why that number is as high as it is. But it still lends, I think I'll talk about what kind of happened, what my recommendations are there as well. So again, just like we did in the general fund, we overshot grants that were written for but not received. So we estimated that $224,000 was going to come in. That did not get received, but it was recognized in 2025's budget. We also had some offset charges that we took in additional $30,000, $30,362 in additional revenue that kind of offset, some of the revenue expectations there. But that was from, usage charges, meaning people spent more on water. And so our sewer charges that we, received were higher as a result of that. Some of the variances that I saw again was that our sewage treatment costs were up over $110,000 this year. So that was an additional cost. We did not budget for contracted services using Oakmont. to handle our billing. There was charges of around $43,000 for that. And then just in general, when our capital projects occurred later in the year, but we didn't, receive the funds until later in the year, it made it look like we were upside down $180,000, but in reality, it was just based on the timing of when we actually did that project. That money did get received, but it's just a matter of when we got the money that made that expenditure variance look like it was out of whack to the tune of 180,000. So just like I had some recommendations for the general fund. I think that for the sewer fund, we need to monitor, we're out of our debt service payments now, so we should expect to see our revenues climb quicker each quarter now because we're not making those debt service payments anymore. The general fund has completely paid off that sewer debt that it was owed. We need to continue to monitor how we budget for grants in these budgets rather than putting them into these operating, funds. They should probably be more geared in the capital fund so that they don't throw these budgets off like they did this year in 2025. And then again, I think that we need to be making these rate corrections for services sooner rather than, handling these as pass-through increases. So again, we increased our sewer budget by 7% because that's what Alcatel charges us, but we didn't really, we had a lot of, increase in sewer rates because of how much water people used in the 2025 year that we just didn't necessarily account for. So again, I feel like that budget is still razor thin. It's very tight. But those were some of the suggestions. We continue to monitor our revenue from that fund as well. As far as our liquid fuels fund goes, we do have some carryover money in here. We budgeted, to utilize those carryover funds and to have a negative number of 25, of around 25,000 because we were using previously balanced unused money in that fund. Our actual net, we spent over $26,000, which is pretty close to where we thought we would be on this budget. The fund is still in really good shape, but again, our paving was relatively small for 2025, and but we still spent right around where we thought we were going to be for this particular one. Some of the big items that I found that impacted this fund was that our interest earnings, we over budgeted for those by around $2,500. We shot a little high on what we thought we were going to get in as far as the funds went by $1,500. Our rock salt budget was over budget and our street lighting was under budget by about, close to the same dollar amount. So when you look at these, these particular variances, again, they're not really far off when, in the aggregate. So I feel like this fund was pretty well in budget, but some of those interest earnings and things like that, as we spent that money down, we earned less money on what we thought we were going to earn, and that's where that ended up. So again, just some recommendations on that one. Budget a little bit more conservative on interest, and we need to. One of the big impacts to our spending in 2025 was Roxanne. Talked about that before about the need to.
Oh, sorry, it's not you.
About we have a need to consider a larger salt storage area because if we don't, if we have to continue to order rock salt on the fly like we did this year and like we will more likely have to do in 2026, we pay more for that. So if we can order larger amounts and get fewer deliveries, not only do we have the peace of mind that we have rock salt, but we can also avoid that price volatility that we did pay for in 2025. And then lastly is the capital fund. This one was probably the most volatile, but it also had the most variances in the budget itself. So we budgeted to have spent in this fund, over 136,000 of what we anticipated revenue coming in on, and those were some pretty large capital projects that were done out of that fund. We don't always take in a lot of money in our capital fund, and this is usually funded through fund balance. So whatever we don't spend in from year to year, we will move money over into this fund, and this is how we do bigger projects. But as far as our income went, we didn't have a lot of income that went into this fund. 15,000, that was from a grant that we got issued. We expected to transfer $257,000 into that fund, or for that fund to also be replenished with grant money. That did not happen. But we also expected to spend $388,000 that we did not spend. So, we actually netted, only a loss of $4,500 in this fund, mainly because we didn't take in money, so we didn't spend that money on those projects that we expected we were going to get. So some of the big variances were, the capital works had a project that was laid out, and this might have been more than one project. All I looked at was the individual lines. But Public Works had a capital project of $250,000 that didn't get done. Parks had a project of $138,000 that didn't get done. And again, our interest earnings we overestimated what we were going to get in there. So, that played out differently in the end of 2025. So overall, some things that we can be doing better, I think, to make this a little more clear, is that we can base our projects on funds that are available rather than projecting that we're going to get these grant funds and then have them sitting on that balance sheet. The other thing is that we can put a project together that more tracks the funding and timing of when these projects will be done, working more closely with Matt and, with the engineer to really help guide how those funds would peel off of that budget in a little cleaner manner. So, again, that was just from a high level. It's kind of like the pre view to the, what I would consider to be the 2025 audit as to where we sit. But I think it gives you guys a little bit of a snapshot as to how those funds performed in 2025. And that's everything that I have. Does anybody have any questions on those items?
That is an excellent snapshot. Thank you for preparing that.
Very good.
Would you,
Well done.
would you typically do that just annually? Could you do that again this summer?
Yeah, I think it'd be good for us to do it every quarter,
Every quarter.
just to do a check-in. And I think working with are we calling it a financial sustainability? I think it'd be good to sit with that committee and develop a more deeper dive. This was really just kind of like that check-in and snapshot as to how the year ended. And I only kind of looked at that from the last 4 months myself. So, but I think it'd be a good check-in to do every quarter.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'll just ask one general question. Can you clarify which of the items related to grants are currently in the general fund that are causing ambiguity that you propose moving to the capital? I heard sewer, but shouldn't we move all capital projects grant funded?
I think that we should, those larger capital projects, I think, should be coming right out of the capital reserve. And then that's also a really good check on the fact that, if you don't have it, you can't spend it either. So if it's not showing up on that capital budget and the funds aren't available in it, you can't just pull it from the general fund then, which I feel like that general fund, because it was budgeted the way that it has been
Right.
with that larger fund, that was normally moved over from fund balance to the capital.
Yeah.
I think it was looked at as,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say a piggy bank, but it was kind of looked at as, hey, we have this money sitting here.
Safety net.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Would you include road paving in the capital projects that move to capital fund?
Definitely. Yep.
I just wanted to say that, in the beginning, you were talking about the solid waste collection disposal line 364.300, because we didn't have the information from January, but we just got it. And it says that we took in 56,720. So that's actually offset plus a little extra left
Right.
over. So that line item is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, a couple things I wanted to note, for people especially wondering about our bill that's going to come out, with an increase in the garbage. If you recall, with the sewer, bill, we passed the thing at the beginning of each year to go up 7%, because Alcosan is charging us 7%. So both the water, or all three, the water, the sewage, and the garbage goes through the water company. And so anything that isn't paid, we pay, the borough pays. And so it's possible, and again, the finance committee will spend a little more time with this with our borough manager, but I think what happened is we didn't go up each year on the garbage while county hauling was increasing our rate to the borough according to the contract. I can't swear to this because I don't remember, but if anybody else here remembers whether or not we passed a motion to increase our garbage rates, then that's one thing. I don't remember us doing that. I really remember us doing Alcoasand. I remember the explanation, went up by 7%. So warning everybody, your Alcoasand part of your bill is gonna go up by 7%. I don't know what the percentage is here. I'm not sure what the contract says. So at some point soon, in the next couple of months, our bills are going to increase accordingly because of the garbage part of that bill that we get from Oakmont Water. It's water, sewage, and garbage. But we can't continue to run at a loss if that's indeed what we discover when we look at it more carefully. You know, whatever they're increasing our rates, we need to pass that increase rate along to the people in the community. It's unfortunately the way that it works. Also wanted to point out, so the salt, everything is dependent on everything else. So in order for us to be able to buy 120% of what we think we'll need in salt, we need a bigger place to put it in, which is why finding a new place for the salt shed is very important. Because if we don't find a bigger area to put it in, then we can't order the 120%, which means we spend more on salt. So I just wanted people to be aware of how, you know, one thing leads to another thing, which leads to another thing, which ultimately leads to us having less money a lot of times. And the fourth thing was just, I don't know the answer to this. I just know that there's some way that you're supposed to put the grant money in, the grant money out. And that's what I learned about 3 years ago, working with Stephanie. She put the grant money in, she took the grant money out. The grant money out was higher than the grant money in because it included the match. And the matches is where we lose the money. And some grants, you get the money and you just spend it. But a lot of grants, you don't get the money. You spend it, and then you send something to the grant people, and then they send you some money. So it's complicated with grants. It's very difficult to track how that money comes in and how that money goes out. So those were just a few little insights that I have on that. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me. Let me know if I got that right.
So should we, going forward, just put that money just into the capital fund? Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's where it makes sense to keep it off of your books that way. Cause it really threw off, you know, what I thought looked like at the year end. When you look at the expenditures and revenues, it really threw them off because the expectations were higher than what.
yeah,
you
it
actually
makes us look like we're doing a lot better than we were.
Mm-hmm. And that money may be coming in 2026, but it's very
Yeah.
hard to predict
Yeah,
when the project, you know, like the weather, it has a big impact on a lot of these paving projects and they stopped. And so if it's the type of grant where you spend the money, then you send in that invoice and then they reimburse us, then we're not getting that money in 2025, even though we did that project in 2025. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I hope the people, yeah.
Right. All good comments about how to make this cleaner and smoother and in alignment with best practices. Other questions for Jason on the report or comments? I trust that we can follow up with you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. At this time, this will bring us to section 8, comments from the public. Once again, council will hear comments on public related matters. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand, state your name and address, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Comments should focus on borough business, policies, or actions. Council encourages thoughtful feedback on decisions and performance while maintaining a respectful and constructive dialogue. Hi, Susie.
Susie Davis, 537 Ridge Avenue. First off, where's Mr. Long? Why? Did he report that he had to work or something? Because he should have been here, I felt. He's part of this council, he should be here. Second, okay, you were talking about the paving and the speed humps down on Arch Street. Are you going to put the speed hump on Selden this year? Because last summer, early fall, when I brought it up, I was led to believe that it was going in. I understand the weather played a factor. It's playing a factor right now, but it needs to be put down there. Am I correct? They're still speeding down there. Yes, they're horrible down there. And my last thing is with the council, borough manager position. I understand there was one that was interested in the job and you guys couldn't pay them because they wanted a little bit more, but from what you're saying, it was within the pay range. I understand that this person wanted 85,000 and you're saying 60 to 85,000, possibly 90. So why wasn't that person hired? We need to get somebody in here, even if it's a part-time, because I'm sure we're paying Jason a lot more for his consulting than we would pay a regular borough manager. Am I correct or not? Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. I will comment briefly on item 3. Our top 2 candidates both took other positions in other places for various reasons.
Okay.
So it wasn't an issue about the salary. Regarding point 2, do we think the speed hump on Selden should be covered under infrastructure or planning and active transportation? Curtis?
Whatever's fastest.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want it to seem like I'm pushing for it because I don't want to get involved in something that's, it makes it look like, you know what I mean? So whatever you think's best.
All right, we'll
Yeah.
make sure we get that on our priorities
I
list.
do have a
Thank you.
question about that. Or a comment. I
Yep.
think we don't need just one. I think you need 2.
Yes, one at the very beginning
Mhm.
and one farther down.
Okay.
Yeah.
On either side of
Pretty
the
much.
stop signs.
Got it.
Because they're flying out from the boulevard onto there, from Front Street on. And then they're flying from
Yeah.
the plastics plant
Mhm.
and Conco down there.
Mhm.
Not so much dailies, because most of the dailies employees go through the ARB entrance.
Right. Perfect. Thank you for citing that, Susie. Other comments?
I can just add one more thing to the thing about the humps. My recollection is that Matt, when we were asking about this before, specifics about road humps, when you're not actually paving the road at that time, I think he said something about one hump costs something like $10,000. And I'm not sure that we had budgeted for that or had a grant for that.
Mhm.
And the reason we're considering it down by Sylvan is because we're gonna be paving and it costs a lot less to put a hump in when you're paving. So we gotta maybe find some extra money somewhere in order to be able to just put a hump in there.
Noted.
Before you go on, Sandy, one thing. If you're having to pay Front Street,
You gotta come up there.
if you're paving from Front Street, because you're doing Front Street because they only skim coated it last year.
Right.
How much more would it be to add on to that
We'd have to ask Matt. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
On Front Street or on Selden?
on Selden
Okay.
to put the speed bumps? Like I said, they gotta come in and pave it because they tore it up last year. They put the skim coat on, then the weather changed and they never finished it.
Right.
And by the way, coming off the boulevard onto Front Street, there's some nasty holes there. I hope the borough today, when they were out doing cold patch those because they're awful.
Got it.
But yeah, like I said, if you're gonna do that, see Felino or whoever the contractor was that's gonna be doing Front Street, if they couldn't do it,
Got it.
maybe at a better price.
Thank you, Susie.
just a continuation from my earlier
Yes.
comments
Mhm.
regarding DPW and duties and responsibilities. At some point in 2025, I came down here and talked to council about the pet station on Second Avenue and was told by council that it had to come down because it wasn't in the DPW's responsibilities to collect that, even though they were collecting the other trash disposals. So when I'm talking conflict of interest, and I mean, I don't quite understand how they could be responsible for hanging baskets and watering baskets, but they weren't responsible for collecting the trash. So if you could look into that as well, I'd appreciate it.
Noted. Jason also already drafted a response to you, so we'll have that to you soon.
There's a hand up there.
Let's finish with the audience members first.
Yeah.
Sherry.
Sherry Kai Hulabar. I just want to wish everybody a happy Chinese New Year.
Thank you.
Today is the first day. It's a fire horse year. My father and I, 10 years ago, we founded the Chinese Culture Center. And we have been collaborating with the Pittsburgh Playhouse down in what is that college? Oh my God, I don't remember now. But we've been, the Culture Center has evolved and putting on some great shows. But tomorrow we invited some of those performers to the Hula Bar. It's all age show. It's free. You don't have to purchase a ticket. So we welcome the residents here to come and enjoy the show. Bring your kids. We're gonna have drum dances and Chinese traditional instrument playing. And we will have homemade dumplings for everybody. So
What time?
starts at 7, so it's all age. Yeah. If you don't get a chance to go down to downtown and enjoy the show, you can come to the hula and see a little snips of it.
That's perfect. Thank you, Sherry. Other comments? Okay, we'll move on to virtual comments. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, sorry, first time using this format. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good. Go ahead.
Leslie Setlog, 566 Spruce. This is really just a question or need for clarification about the manager/secretary issue. I heard the phrase train up a few times. I'm confused as to how that would work because it seems like whether it was for a new grad or for hiring somebody as a secretary, once you train them, you would then be expected to pay them the going rate for a manager. Unless the idea would just be, to hire them as a secretary and have them do manager level work. But assuming that we're planning on actually making them or training them into a manager, we would still then be expected to pay the going rate. So is it possible to explain how that would help? Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
That would be contractual as it was before, right? Where it would be under a contract or it be an hourly employee? How would that work with the secretary treasurer? Is it an hourly position?
No.
Or would it be a contract salaried?
Let's have Jason handle this one if he wishes at this
Sure.
time.
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, we need to look at both, I think at both of those, both an hourly and a salaried position for a secretary treasurer. When you're at around that $60,000 mark, you're in the 30, 28, maybe $29 an hour range, for a position like that. The expectation is that there's not a lot of overtime available for that position, like attending evening meetings and things like that. We would need to look at that. But I think getting to the point of the training piece of that, I think that the goal is do you bring that, and we'll look at this is, if you bring that position in at a lower rate, you're able to increase them incrementally at a slower pace rather than bringing them in at, the 80 to 85,000, expecting them to jump right into the seat, know what the job is, and that type of thing. So I think that, if you can find, number one, if you can find the candidates that are available to you at that lower rate, and you can, bring them along through, various trainings, get a mentoring type situation or something along those lines, a peer program or something that, they would come along within that 6 months to a year timeframe. And then you evaluate what you're gonna do with, with their salary after that, year to year, like you do, the position normally.
Isn't it true, if you were to do a contract with an employee like that, the maximum duration of a contract would be wouldn't it be 4 years? On something like that, isn't it? Because it would be in terms of would it be within like a council term?
So,
Isn't that how that would work?
yeah,
with
so
that?
municipal manager contracts are only up to 2 years.
Up to 2 year.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's every municipal election year.
Okay.
Yep, and then they have to be renegotiated, renewed, whatever, but they have to be voted on every reorganization.
Would it be the same if you were to do a contract for a secretary treasurer position? Similar, I mean, is it the similar makeup if you were to do
Yeah,
a
so-
contract for that type of position?
Yeah, so I have to look into whether or not, an employment agreement is more typical or not for that secretary treasurer position than it is for the borough manager. More typically I see letter agreements that are made with things like that rather than full-on employment agreements that have severance packages and, things like that. But there very well could be those same type of arrangements out there for the secretary treasurer position. I would just need to look into that a little bit more.
I can historically say that with Christine, who was the borough secretary, it was an employment agreement. Craig will say there's no difference between the two, but it was an agreement, and I honestly cannot remember if it was just for a year, but they were negotiating to promote her to borough manager and increase her salary, but it didn't work out. And that was being done when she was about 8 months into the job. And Stephanie's, that was yearly, I think, as well, because I remember we changed her amount anyway that she was getting paid. I don't know if that means we renegotiated other things. I don't remember. But they were agreements. I don't know if that matters, if it's an agreement or a contract.
Our chief has an agreement as well. Do we have any other public comments?
Ryan's Vince.
Those are our only 2 meeting attendees. At this time, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Oh, motion.
Motion by Counselor Carpenter. Do I have a second? Second by Counselor Rodriguez. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Sherry, could you open that press?
Thank you. Have a good night.